Hey everyone, I'm Boom.
And I'm Spice, and this is yet another very special episode of Boom and Spice Book Advice. It's the first episode of our new series, Homemade Poetry. Homemade Poetry. See, we spent hours focus testing, running through review boards, this incredibly cutting-edge name for a poetry series. And the best we could come up with was homemade poetry. And it's apt because the poems are homemade.
Yes, this is not to be confused with Poetry Potluck, where we're bringing other people's poetry to the party. For this segment, we're going to be writing our own poetry.
Exactly.
And bringing it here to share.
Yeah, there's no buying cupcakes at Giant Eagle and passing them off as your own.
Yeah.
If anyone plagiarizes on homemade poetry, they're going to get beat down. We can't stand for that. And this is a bit of a fusion. Have you ever seen Dragon Ball Z, Boom?
I have.
Do you know when they do that fusion dance?
I do.
It's like that with Poetry Potluck and Recommendations. Because on the podcast, we have frequent collaborator, former rapper, general musician, and new poet, Bam Hupp, on the podcast.
Yeah, nice to be here. I'm glad to be back. It's always a good time talking to you gentlemen about books and such.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Truly, he was sort of pushing against the wire on getting his poem done. I'm excited to hear
it's
it.
kind of off the cuff here. Kind of did it real fast, but looking forward to sharing some great poetry with you gentlemen
Exactly.
today.
Feel free to leave in the comments hate. Yeah, criticism for everyone but me. Would anyone like to go first?
I'll start us off. Being the guest. Okay, so you guys ready? Take this in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wishing for lifestyles that look real shiny. Doing that only makes you feel tiny. When you wish simple, then you will sure see that everything you're missing is here and it's free.
That was nice.
Why,
Good
thank
job.
you.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised
Yeah.
and impressed by that.
Wow, why,
Bam.
thank you.
It started out rocky.
Yeah.
The way you ended it, that was really good.
Why, thank
Yeah.
you.
Fucked with it.
I
Thank you guys.
am
Yeah.
I dig it.
impressed
Yeah.
by the meaning that you came up with in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
terrific.
Why, thank you, gentlemen. Why, thank you.
You shocked me so much, I swore really bad. Let's hope that doesn't come through the mix. Yeah.
Now, did you have any inspiration?
I was thinking, what I was going to do is kind of I was going to do mostly rhyming, because that's all I really, could think of a poem that would have, and you guys were saying it doesn't have to have rhymes, doesn't have to have this, such, and that, so I was
Yeah,
just kind
true.
of thinking of anything inspirational, and then just thought of, a Kanye song, or something about, flashing, lights and everything, and get caught up in that, so I kind of just went with that, and then wrote a little something about, how dreaming too big can make you think you're small, when you could just look around and take what you got in,
We've dealt with similar themes on this podcast due to the sheer number of different avenues we've explored.
Mhm.
And it's really, it makes you feel minuscule in the light of the sheer amount of work that's ahead of you.
Oh,
So I feel like they play into similar themes.
Yeah.
In your case,
Good
it's
point.
greed and perhaps luxury that
Yeah.
can make you feel small.
Mhm.
In our case, it's more so
Sheer
take-
volume of what we want compared to what we're actually going to be able to obtain.
Yeah, in different ways, in different mediums,
Yep.
but all the same, it's a similar deal.
Right.
And I think that's an important message to convey. I'm glad you wrote that poem.
No, I thank you
That
guys.
was really good.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So, Boom, do you want to play rock, paper, scissors or something to see who goes next?
Sure. That sounds
see it.
good to me.
Oh, sweet.
Now, are we?
Bam can rep it.
All right, let's see it.
Rock, paper, scissors. 1, 2, 3.
And Devin hits a cold scissors and gets the win.
Of course. I'll go next then.
All right.
In Place of a Binder by Devin Welch. I wrote her a binder of poems, laminated pages, illustrated covers, a foreword and all. When we fell apart, I didn't ask for its return. It was a gift, after all. belongs to her. Her mantle, where it used to reside, has a conspicuous empty spot. Vacancy will soon be taken up by a succulent or some other houseplant. I certainly hope so. The vacancy on my mantle remains untaken, desolate, devoid of any replacements. And that's it.
That was really good. I took what I took notes. You would rather like have her move on into something that grows and gives new life than to be dwelled up on that. Is what. Okay, so at the end, it was still empty. The spot where the binder was still empty. Okay.
You know,
So
that's really interesting symbolism that I didn't write into the book. That's neat. I'm really glad you thought of that.
yeah, I was just thinking like if
Man,
she were
you
to put a
keep this
plant
up,
there.
man. We're gonna have you back.
Jeez.
I was just thinking like you were thinking like what I thought you were saying with the succulent. Like you want her to put something that grows and like something that I thought would be like Wes moving on.
That
from the
totally
situation.
scans.
That could be
Yeah.
a really good.
That's a terrific interpretation of that.
Heck yeah,
That's
I'm
a part of why
right
we're
now.
doing this. Not
Yeah.
only are you knocked it out of the park, especially on this one. I didn't expect that one bit.
Heck yeah.
That poem was incredibly literal. Like, I wrote her a book of poetry for Valentine's Day last year. We broke up pretty soon afterwards, and we were in this awkward situation where it wasn't the messiest of breakups. So she wouldn't have like burnt it or something weird like that. And I went back to her place at some point, and where it was on the mantle, because she really appreciated it when she got it, had since become empty, and it had not been replaced. And it killed me. I saw it, and it got me bad. I'm like
Really?
practically tearing up right now thinking about it,
Yeah, jeez.
because I put a lot of time and
Oh
effort
right,
into
yeah.
it, and it was
a lot of poems. How many poems do you think you read total? In the,
for that.
What's the sidetrack? Yeah.
Maybe 10, 12, something like that.
Yeah,
And it was, I've got a whole Google Doc of it still, because I was proud of the work. I illustrated some pages for it. I got them laminated. I bought a binder for it. And I'm glad it still exists. But the idea of it having had a place had since been gone. It almost feels like, are you familiar with the concept of Chekhov's gun?
No.
So in
Understand.
plays and movies and books and such, if a element is introduced, for instance, like a gun, it's like hanging on the wall in the back. If it's not used within the scene, tension is built. And if you don't blow that off, it sort of leaves the viewer feeling unfulfilled.
Okay.
And I feel like that could have been something if my life were a production of some sort that was introduced as a way to illustrate decay almost in our relationship, where it had been there in a place of prominence and has since
And
been
they took it.
Taken away.
exactly has since gone missing, and that there's a gap where it used to be,
Right.
an absence of sorts. So it was very literal, and I'm glad you read some symbolism into it. That's really neat.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. That was good. That
He
was
is
really good.
better than Harper Lee at symbolism. It's
Oh, no
already,
question.
It's already been
Absolutely.
established. Yeah.
Who's Harper Lee? You don't like Harper Lee?
No. All my homies say
No,
Harper Lee.
if you if you have seen episode 2 of the main series podcast, we reviewed To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and we're not fans of much in that book. Can reference that episode.
It's not good. And one of the main gripes was the heavy-handed symbolism that she uses.
Yep.
For
The
instance,
form
She's
of-
did them like a lot. So like,
not heavy-handed as in a lot, but there is a lot. But heavy-handed as in they're obvious.
Oh,
they're
okay.
abundantly clear.
Okay.
For instance, the man who's persecuted in the book is named Tom Robinson. There's a dog that's shot in the book by the main character. Oh, not the main character, but one of the main characters, Atticus Finch. And the dog has like rabies or mad cow disease, mad dog disease,
Mad
something
Dog,
like that.
yeah.
And when it's shot, its name is Tim Johnson. It has a last name, inexplicably. Just because, presumably, she thought her audience was too dumb to connect Tim the dog to Tom the man without having corresponding last names. It's that.
Yeah, it's a little bad right
Yeah,
there.
it's heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It's-
Jesus.
exactly. So the fact that you read into that means you're on your way, sport.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm proud of you.
Potential is huge here, boys.
Honestly, you're blowing my expectations out of the water.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, I like to hear that. I like
All
to
right.
hear that.
It's time for Boom to clean up. Let's see.
All right. So I'm going to start with quiet water. A small fish swims in a quiet pond. Friends it has none, foes just the same. It swims alone in silence. The fish swims all day. It hopes and it prays to find another wandering. But to its dismay, this wish can't come true. The pond holds no such comfort. And that is all.
Do you see yourself as the fish?
I think that's where it came from, specifically early high school, middle school boom.
That's a shame because
Not so much anymore. And since, like, later high school and now, I don't feel that way.
so I guess someone introduced some extra fish into that.
Yeah. Getting to be more outgoing and meeting people at the right time remedied that.
Do you think?
But
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, not at all. I guess it's interesting too because I didn't mean to go that deep with it when I started writing this. I just thought of fish. I'm like, all right, fish swimming in a pond, and that's where it went.
I've
an
been
interesting-
there a million times.
An interesting dive there.
I like to start my poems. This is some good Boom and Spice writing advice, real quick. When I start my poems, oftentimes I will have words that I start with. That'll be the title, and I'll work from there. Sometimes I'll work so far away from it that I need to change the title back around.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I've gone and I've written like 15 different poems off of the same prompt
starter.
on accident. Like,
That's a neat way of going at it.
Yeah, that's very similar to how this started.
exactly.
Just trying to think of something to get writing because I've not written a lot of poems. So I'm like, I got to write something, get something on the page. Fish swimming.
For instance,
No, I dig
if I could find it, I had this one where I have this idea in my head. I don't know if I lifted it from somewhere, or if I just thought of it on my own, or if it was parallel thinking with something else. But I thought the idea of the last man on Earth using a calendar was interesting. Because it's like, what is he waiting for? What could it possibly mean? And I wrote from that like a million times. And if I could find one, there's one I really enjoyed of that ilk that I'd like to share. This is an extra poem for you guys. There we go. All right. It's called Untethered. When you're abandoned, when structure disappears, when language is dead, what will you do? How will you act? Will you act like a man? I know what I'd do. I'd hobble into my cave, I'd find a sharp rock or a stick, I'd rub it in the dirt, and I'd draw you on the walls. That's one I wrote off of.
That was good.
Yeah.
No, I dig that. I like that one a lot.
And you can see the connection there, where it's being primitive while still trying to connect back to culture. And that's a useful way I found to write
Yeah,
poems.
absolutely. To at least get it started.
Exactly. And it can be repurposed. I've gotten it from books. I've read books. I found a line that I found insightful. I've written off of that line and I've scratched the part out that I used initially as my inspiration.
No, I like that. That was a good poem too, man. That's good.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I think that pretty successful like first go round at introducing
Yeah,
poetry here. I think
yeah.
everyone did.
Lights out,
Brought
man.
some interesting stuff.
Brought the
Exactly.
house down.
I feel like the way we used, I feel like illustrating the fingerprint that's left on every poem by its author is interesting because Boom and I have been discussing doing series on certain popular authors like Raymond Carver, H.P. Lovecraft, who have complicated pasts within, whether it be their beliefs or their actions. And and how that reflects in their work and the ways you can distill that and still enjoy their work without taking in potentially harmful ideology, or at the very least being able to discuss it at length. And I feel like the importance of that is shown through the fact that all three of us had, in some way, a personal connection to our poems. Whether it be in my case, very literal, in Bam's case, very symbolically, and then Boom's case somewhere in between in terms of how it related back to personal. Well, it's especially symbolic in his case, considering the fish is a symbol for Boom. The weirdest equation ever. Fish equals Boom. Exactly. Bam, any remarks on writing your first poem?
No, actually, I look forward to writing another one. Just one thing I didn't do actually was put a title, and I figured I should do that on the next one. But I think that one, like, I wouldn't even want a title. I think it should be untitled. I think it was the way it was set up. Is that even a thing? Can you have an untitled poem?
Yeah.
Is that rules? Okay.
You absolutely can. Poems are very wild and loose when it comes to their rules.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. It's the wild, wild west of writing stuff. And it's something I appreciate because it allows us to rope in good friends like Bam.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone's listening to this, please give them some love in the comments.
I would appreciate that, guys.
I know
I really would.
it took them a lot of courage to come on here,
Yeah.
and we greatly apprate it.
Oh,
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys having me, man. It's always fun. It's always fun chat.
I'm excited to have you back, either tonight, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see
In the
tonight.
timeline of the poem, like release dates, a week from whenever this comes out.
Heck yeah.
And thank you very much.
Well, I thank you guys. It's been fun.
All right. Well, this has been the first episode of Poetry Bringing Homemade. This has been the first episode of Homemade Poetry with Boom, Spice, and Bam. We'll see you next time.